She whispered. "We have nowhere to go," Millionaire replied. "You do now." The night was cold, rain drizzling softly against the glow of city lights that painted the wet streets in shades of gold and amber. Hannah Reed sat on a park bench that had become her temporary shelter, clutching her shivering 5-year-old daughter, Ella, beneath a thin blanket that barely kept out the autumn chill. Her eyes were swollen from crying, red-rimmed and exhausted from too many sleepless nights. Her stomach was empty, had been empty for a second day now. The hunger, a constant ache she'd learned to ignore because her daughter's needs mattered more than her own discomfort. Life had stripped Hannah of everything with ruthless efficiency. Her job at the retail store where she'd worked for 3 years, gone when the company downsized. Her apartment, lost when she couldn't make rent after 2 months of unemployment. The little security she'd built so carefully after her husband Marcus abandoned them when Ella was just 2 years old. All of it crumbled like sand through her fingers. She'd gone everywhere for help. Shelters that were full or had waiting lists months long. Friends who'd offered sympathy but couldn't take them in. Churches with limited resources, already stretched thin. Each door seemed to close just as quickly as it opened, and with each rejection, Hannah felt a little more of herself disappear. Her daughter's soft voice broke through her thoughts, small and scared in the darkness. "Mommy, are we going home tonight?" Hannah forced a smile that probably looked more like a grimace, smoothing Ella's damp hair back from her forehead. "Soon, baby. Mummy's just figuring things out." But they both knew it was a lie. At that very moment, a sleek black car pulled up near the park entrance, its headlights cutting through the rain. Ethan Cole, a 36-year-old billionaire CEO, sat inside waiting for a business call to connect, reviewing quarterly reports on his tablet. But his attention was drawn to the frail figure huddled under the street lamp, to the protective way the woman wrapped herself around the small child, trying to shield her from elements that couldn't be kept out with just a thin blanket and desperate love. Something about the scene tugged at him in a way he couldn't ignore. Perhaps because he once knew what it felt like to lose everything. Perhaps because the protective embrace reminded him of his own mother, who'd done her best before cancer took her and left him alone at 15. Perhaps because he was tired of walking past suffering and pretending not to see it. He stepped out of the car, umbrella in hand, and walked toward them through puddles that reflected the city lights like liquid mirrors. Before we continue with this incredible story, drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the stories we share here are about more than just entertainment. They're about hope, redemption, and the power of human kindness to change everything. Now let's see what happens when Ethan approaches Hannah and Ella on that cold, rainy night. Hannah saw him approaching and immediately tensed. She'd learned to be wary of everyone, especially men, especially at night, especially when she was this vulnerable. Her arms tightened protectively around Ella, who had fallen into a fitful sleep against her shoulder. "Mom, are you all right?" Ethan asked gently, keeping a respectful distance. His voice was kind, concerned rather than threatening, but Hannah had learned that voices could lie. Startled despite his gentle tone, Hannah wiped at her tears with the back of her hand and stood on shaking legs, swaying slightly from exhaustion and hunger. "We're fine, sir. Please, we'll move if we're bothering anyone. We were just resting for a moment." But Ethan noticed everything his years in business had taught him to be observant. He noticed the child's trembling lips, blue-tinged from cold, the damp blanket that provided almost no protection, the way Hannah held herself, trying to maintain dignity while clearly at the end of her rope, the resignation in her eyes that said she'd asked for help too many times and been turned away. "You're not bothering anyone," he said quietly, "but you're also not fine. Neither of you are fine." He held out his umbrella, offering what little shelter he could. "When's the last time either of you ate?" Hannah's jaw tightened, pride warring with desperation. "We don't need charity, sir. We're managing." "That wasn't my question." Ethan's voice was firm but not unkind. "When did you last eat?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Ethan felt something twist in his chest, a mixture of anger at a world that let mothers and children go hungry and determination to do something about it, at least for these two people standing in front of him. "Come with me," he said, gesturing toward his car. "Please, let me get you somewhere warm and dry at least. You can have a hot meal, a safe place to sleep tonight. No strings attached, just basic human decency." Hannah shook her head, even as Ella stirred against her shoulder and whimpered from cold. "I don't even know you. I can't just get in your car. I have my daughter to protect." "My name is Ethan Cole," he said, pulling out his wallet and showing her his driver's license and business card. "I own Cole Industries. You can Google me right now if you have a phone. My face is all over the company website. I'm not trying to hurt you or your daughter. I'm trying to help." "Why?" Hannah asked, the word coming out broken and desperate. "Why would you help us? Nobody helps anymore. Everybody has excuses or conditions or just walks past like we're invisible." Ethan was quiet for a moment, rain pattering against his umbrella, thinking about how to answer honestly. "Because my mother used to say that we're only as good as how we treat people who can do nothing for us in return. Because I've been fortunate beyond measure, and refusing to share that fortune when I see someone in need makes me no better than the people who walked past you. And because," he paused, looking at the sleeping child, "because every child deserves to be warm and fed and safe, and right now your daughter is none of those things. So please, let me help. You don't have to trust me permanently. Just trust me enough to get out of this rain." Hannah looked at her daughter, at the way Ella's small body shook despite being held close. She thought about the last 2 nights sleeping on benches, about the soup kitchen that wouldn't open until morning, about the gnawing fear that she was failing at the one job that mattered most, keeping her child safe. "We have nowhere to go," she whispered, the admission feeling like defeat and surrender, and the last shred of hope all at once. Ethan met her gaze and said softly, "You do now." The drive to Ethan's estate was quiet. Hannah sat in the back seat with Ella, holding her close, still not quite believing this was happening. The car was warm, the heater blasting blessed heat that slowly stopped their shivering. Through the rain-streaked windows, she watched the city change, neighborhoods growing progressively wealthier, houses getting larger and more spread out. "Where are we going?" she finally asked, breaking the silence. "My home," Ethan said from the driver's seat. "It's about 20 minutes outside the city. I have guest rooms that aren't being used. You and your daughter can stay there tonight at minimum, longer if you need to. I can't impose on you like that." Pointed. "You're not imposing. I'm offering." He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "When's the last time your daughter saw a doctor?" Hannah felt her throat tighten. 2 months ago. Before we lost the apartment. Before I lost my insurance with my job. "We'll get that sorted out too," Ethan said simply, like it was the easiest thing in the world. Like healthcare and housing and food weren't impossible obstacles, but simple problems with simple solutions. They pulled through gates that opened automatically, down a long driveway lined with trees, and stopped in front of a house that Hannah could only describe as a mansion. Not ostentatious or showy, but undeniably large and elegant, with warm lights glowing in windows and a front entrance that looked like something from a magazine. Ethan parked and came around to help Hannah out of the car. She stood on the driveway holding her sleeping daughter, feeling completely out of place in her dirty clothes and worn shoes, looking at this beautiful home and wondering what she'd gotten herself into. "Come inside," Ethan said gently. "Let's get you both warm and fed." The interior of the house was just as impressive as the exterior. High ceilings, beautiful artwork, furniture that looked both comfortable and expensive. But what struck Hannah most was how warm it felt. Not just the temperature, but the atmosphere. This wasn't a showpiece or a museum. It was a home where someone actually lived. A woman in her 50s appeared from a hallway, concern crossing her face when she saw Hannah and Ella. "Mr. Cole, is everything all right?" "Margaret, this is Hannah and her daughter Ella. They'll be staying with us for a while. Could you prepare the blue guest suite and see if we can find some dry clothes that might fit them, and perhaps something warm to eat?" Margaret's expression shifted from surprise to understanding to determination in quick succession. "Of course, sir, right away." She looked at Hannah with kind eyes. "You poor dear. Let's get you sorted out. Come with me." Hannah followed Margaret up a sweeping staircase, through hallways with soft carpet that her worn shoes sank into, to a bedroom that was bigger than the entire apartment she'd lost. There was a king-sized bed with fluffy pillows and a thick comforter, a sitting area with a couch and chair, a bathroom visible through an open door that looked like it belonged in a spa. "The bathroom has fresh towels," Margaret said, already pulling clothes from the closet. "These belong to Mr. Cole's sister. She leaves things here for when she visits. They might be a bit big, but they'll be clean and dry. For the little one." She produced children's clothes from another drawer. "Mr. Cole's niece stays here sometimes. I think these might fit your daughter." "Why does he have all this?" Hannah asked, still struggling to process the kindness of strangers. "Why is he helping us?" Margaret smiled softly. "Mr. Cole has a good heart. He doesn't always show it publicly, but he cares deeply about people, especially children. His own mother struggled to provide for him after his father left. He remembers what it feels like to worry about where you'll sleep or when you'll eat. Now that he has resources, he uses them to help when he can." She patted Hannah's shoulder gently. "Take a hot shower, both of you. Change into clean clothes. I'll bring up some food. Then you can rest. You're safe here, dear. You and your little one are safe." After Margaret left, Hannah carried Ella into the bathroom and started the shower. The water pressure was incredible, the hot water seemingly endless. She washed Ella first, gently cleaning away days of dirt and street grime while her daughter slowly woke up, confused about where they were. "Mommy, where are we?" "Somewhere safe. Baby," Hannah said, wrapping her in one of the impossibly soft towels. "A nice man is helping us. Is he going to hurt us like Daddy did?" Hannah's heart broke at the question, at the fact that her 5-year-old daughter had learned to fear men because of Marcus's violence before he left. "No, sweetheart. I think he really wants to help." After getting Ella dressed in the borrowed clothes, Hannah took her own shower, standing under the hot water and crying. Not from sadness this time, but from relief so profound it felt like physical pain. For 2 months, she'd been carrying the weight of their survival alone. For 2 months, she'd been one bad day away from losing Ella to child services because she couldn't provide basic necessities. And now, impossibly, a stranger had offered them shelter and food and safety. She dressed in the borrowed clothes, slightly too big but clean and comfortable, and emerged to find Margaret had brought a tray of food. Soup, sandwiches, fruit, juice for Ella, tea for Hannah. Nothing fancy, but to Hannah it looked like a feast. Ella ate with the desperate hunger of a child who'd gone too long without enough food. Hannah forced herself to eat slowly despite her own hunger, not wanting to make herself sick. Between bites, she watched her daughter's color improve, saw the trembling stop, witnessed the fear in those little eyes gradually replaced with curiosity about this strange new place. There was a gentle knock on the door. Ethan's voice came through. "May I come in?" "Yes," Hannah called, setting down her tea. Ethan entered, carrying what looked like stuffed animals. He knelt down to Ella's level, offering her a teddy bear. "Hi there. My name is Ethan. What's your name?" Ella looked at her mother for permission. When Hannah nodded, she whispered, "Ella, that's a beautiful name," Ethan said warmly. "I thought you might like some friends to keep you company tonight." He gestured to several stuffed animals he'd brought. "These belonged to my niece when she was about your age. She's too big for them now, but I bet they'd love to have a new friend to play with." Ella's eyes lit up. She hadn't had toys in months. Everything sold or lost when they'd lost their apartment. She reached tentatively for the teddy bear, then hugged it tight. Ethan stood and addressed Hannah. "I wanted to talk with you about tomorrow, if you're feeling up to it. But if you'd rather rest tonight and discuss things in the morning, that's completely fine too." Hannah set Ella up with the stuffed animals and the rest of her meal, then followed Ethan to the sitting area, keeping her daughter in sight but creating space for an adult conversation. "Why are you doing this?" Hannah asked again, needing to understand. "I'm nobody. Ella and we're nothing to you. Why would you go to all this trouble?" Ethan sat in one of the chairs, gesturing for Hannah to take the other. "Can I tell you something about my childhood?" Hannah nodded, sitting carefully on the edge of the chair like she might need to run at any moment. "My father left when I was 6, Ethan began. "Just walked out one day and never came back. My mother worked 3 jobs, trying to keep us afloat. I remember nights when she'd tell me she wasn't hungry so I could eat her portion. I remember winter nights when the heat got shut off because she couldn't pay the bill. I remember the constant fear that we'd end up on the street, that we'd lose everything. He paused, his expression distant with memory. When I was 15, my mother got diagnosed with cancer, stage 4. She didn't have insurance, couldn't afford treatment. She died 6 months later, and I ended up in foster care. Bounced around between homes until I aged out at 18. I was lucky. I got a scholarship to community college, then transferred to a 4-year university. Started my first business with a loan I barely qualified for. Built it from nothing into what it is today. That's an incredible story, Hannah said softly. It's a privileged story, Ethan corrected. I got lucky. I had teachers who believed in me. I had the right opportunities at the right times. I made it out, but I never forgot what it felt like to be where you are now. Scared, hungry, desperate, trying to protect someone you love while everything falls apart around you. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. Hannah, I can't help everyone. I know that, but I can help you and Ella. And maybe by helping you, I'm helping the version of my mother who struggled alone, or the version of myself who was terrified and didn't know where to turn. Does that make sense? Hannah felt tears streaming down her face again, but these were different tears. Grateful tears, disbelieving tears. What do you want in return? Nothing, Ethan said simply. No strings, no conditions, no expectations. You can stay here as long as you need. I'll help you find a job if you want one. Help you get back on your feet. But there's no timeline, no pressure. You focus on taking care of your daughter and healing from whatever brought you to that park bench. Everything else we'll figure out together. I don't know what to say except thank you, Hannah whispered. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for caring. Thank you for trusting me enough to come here, Ethan replied. I know it took courage, getting in a stranger's car with your child. I know you had to push past every safety instinct to accept help. That takes strength. They talked for another hour, Ethan asking gentle questions about Hannah's situation, and Hannah finding herself opening up in ways she hadn't with anyone. She told him about Marcus, about the abuse that had started subtle and escalated until she'd fled with Ella in the middle of the night, about the job she'd lost through no fault of her own, about the friends who'd gradually stopped returning her calls when they realized she needed more help than they could give, about the system that seemed designed to keep people down rather than help them up. Ethan listened without judgment, without offering platitudes or easy solutions. He just listened, and somehow that was exactly what Hannah needed. When Ella started yawning, Ethan stood. I'll let you both get some rest. You've had a long day. Margaret will be up in the morning with breakfast. There's no schedule, no expectations. Sleep as long as you need. When you're ready, we'll talk about next steps. But for tonight, just rest. You're safe here. After he left, Hannah tucked Ella into the enormous bed, climbing in beside her. Her daughter clutched the teddy bear Ethan had given her, already half asleep. Mummy, I like it here, Ella murmured. It's warm, and the nice man gave me a bear. Can we stay? Hannah's throat tightened. For a little while, baby. At least for a little while. Good, Ella said, her eyes closing. I was scared on the bench. I'm not scared anymore. Hannah held her daughter close, feeling clean sheets against her skin, feeling full for the first time in days, feeling warm and safe and like maybe, impossibly, things might actually be okay. She thought about Ethan, about his unexpected kindness, about the way he'd looked at Ella with genuine care rather than pity or judgment. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, didn't know how long this reprieve would last, didn't know if she could trust that this kindness was real and lasting. But for tonight, on this soft bed in this warm room, with her daughter sleeping peacefully beside her for the first time in weeks, Hannah let herself hope. The next morning, Hannah woke to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to close the curtains on. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory returned, and she sat up quickly, checking to make sure Ella was still beside her. Her daughter slept peacefully, the teddy bear still clutched tight. There was a gentle knock on the door. Margaret's voice came through. Good morning, dear. I've brought breakfast. May I come in? Yes, please, Hannah called softly, not wanting to wake Ella. Margaret entered with a tray laden with food. Fresh fruit, yogurt, toast, eggs, juice. Mr. Cole thought you might prefer to eat in your room this morning, she explained. But you're welcome to come down to the dining room for lunch if you'd like. This is perfect, Hannah said, her stomach growling at the smell of food. Thank you so much. Mr. Cole also wanted me to give you this, Margaret said, handing Hannah an envelope. He had to leave early for meetings in the city, but he wanted you to have options for today. After Margaret left, Hannah opened the envelope. Inside was a note in neat handwriting and several $100 bills. Hannah, I had to head into the office for meetings I couldn't reschedule, but Margaret is here if you need anything. Feel free to explore the house and grounds. There are books in the library, movies in the media room, and a garden if Ella would like to play outside. The money is for anything you might need. Clothes, toiletries, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. There's also a car service number if you want to go shopping or just get out of the house. Please don't feel like you're imposing or overstaying. You're not. This is your home for as long as you need it. Ethan. P.S. I took the liberty of scheduling a doctor's appointment for Ella tomorrow at 10 a.m. Dr. Morrison is excellent with children. If that's too soon or you'd prefer a different doctor, just let Margaret know. Hannah stared at the money and the note, feeling overwhelmed again. She'd never met anyone like Ethan Cole. Wealthy people who actually cared. Powerful people who used their resources to help rather than just accumulate more. It didn't feel real. Ella woke up slowly, stretching and looking around with wide eyes. Mummy, I thought I dreamed this place. It's real, baby, Hannah said, hugging her daughter. We're really here. And look, Margaret brought us breakfast. They ate together on the comfortable bed, Ella chattering about the stuffed animals and asking if they could explore the house. After breakfast, Hannah dressed them both in the borrowed clothes and ventured out of their room. The house was even more impressive in daylight. Hannah and Ella explored carefully, Margaret appearing periodically to show them different rooms and explain where things were. The library with floor-to-ceiling books, the media room with comfortable recliners and a screen larger than any TV Hannah had ever seen, the kitchen where Margaret worked, warm and filled with the smell of baking bread. Can we go outside? Ella asked, pressing her face against a window overlooking the back gardens. Of course, Margaret said. The gardens are lovely this time of year. There's a play area near the back where Mr. Cole's niece plays when she visits. Outside, the grounds were beautiful. Manicured lawns, flower beds still blooming despite the autumn chill, a small playground with swings and a slide. Ella ran toward the swings with more energy than Hannah had seen from her in months, laughing as she pumped her legs and soared higher. Hannah sat on a nearby bench, watching her daughter play, feeling tears prick at her eyes again. How many times had she wanted to take Ella to a park over the past 2 months but couldn't because parks weren't safe at night and they had nowhere else to go? How many times had she heard her daughter ask to play and had to say no because they were focused on survival, on finding shelter, on staying together? She's a beautiful child, Margaret said, joining Hannah on the bench. Thank you, Hannah said. She's my whole world. I would do anything for her. That's obvious, Margaret said kindly. The way you protected her last night, even when Mr. Cole approached. A mother's love is powerful. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Ella play. Finally, Hannah asked, "What's he like?" "Really? Ethan, I mean?" "Mr. Cole," Margaret smiled. "He's a good man, driven, focused on his business, but with a soft heart he doesn't always show. He does this more than you'd think, helps people quietly without wanting recognition or thanks. There's a family living in one of his rental properties, hasn't paid rent in 6 months because the father got sick. Ethan hasn't evicted them, won't even consider it, says he'd rather lose money than put a family on the street." "That's incredible," Hannah said softly. "He remembers where he came from," Margaret continued. "He remembers what it's like to struggle, and he uses his success to make sure others don't have to suffer the way he and his mother did. That's rare in wealthy people, I've found. Most forget or convince themselves they earned everything, and others should do the same. But Mr. Cole, he understands that circumstances matter, that luck and opportunity play a role, that sometimes people just need help." Hannah thought about that throughout the day. She and Ella explored more of the grounds, ate lunch that Margaret prepared, spent the afternoon in the library reading books together. It felt surreal, this normalcy. this comfort, this lack of constant survival mode. That evening, Ethan returned from his meetings. He found Hannah and Ella in the media room, watching a children's movie. He knocked gently before entering. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "It's your house," Hannah said, then immediately felt stupid for stating the obvious. "It's your home," Ethan corrected gently, settling into one of the recliners. "For as long as you want it to be." They watched the rest of the movie together, Ella eventually climbing into Ethan's lap like it was the most natural thing in the world, pointing out her favorite characters and giggling at the funny parts. Hannah watched nervously at first, protective instincts on high alert. But Ethan was gentle with her daughter, patient with the running commentary, genuinely engaged rather than just tolerating her presence. After the movie ended and Ella had been tucked into bed, Hannah and Ethan sat in the library, the fire crackling softly in the fireplace. "Thank you for the doctor's appointment," Hannah said, "and the money, and everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You don't have to repay kindness," Ethan said. "That's not how it works. But Hannah, I do want to talk with you about something. Not pressure, just options." "Okay," Hannah said carefully. "I have connections throughout the city, businesses, organizations, people who owe me favors. If you tell me what kind of work you're interested in, I can help you find a job. Something with fair pay and good benefits, something that gives you stability." Hannah felt tears threaten again. "I was in retail before, manager of a clothing store. I liked it, was good at it. But I lost my job when the company restructured, and without references or a stable address, I couldn't get hired anywhere else." "I can help with that," Ethan said. "I have contacts in retail, or if you want to try something different, we can explore other options. The point is, you have choices. You're not trapped or desperate anymore." "What do you get out of this?" Hannah asked, the question she'd been holding back. "Why are you being so kind to complete strangers?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. "I told you about my mother last night. What I didn't tell you was that on the night she died, I promised her something. I promised that if I ever made it out, if I ever became successful, I would help other people the way I wished someone had helped us. This isn't charity, Hannah. It's me keeping a promise to a woman who sacrificed everything for me." He turned to look at her directly. "And honestly, you and Ella have given me something too. You've reminded me why I built this company, why I work as hard as I do. It's not about accumulating wealth or power. It's about having the resources to make a difference. You've given me purpose, Hannah. So maybe we're helping each other." Hannah didn't know what to say to that. She just knew that for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt hope, real, tangible hope, that life could be better, that her daughter could have the childhood she deserved, that they could build something stable and secure and good. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay, I'll accept your help, with the job, with everything. And Ethan, thank you, for seeing us, for stopping, for caring. You saved our lives." "No," Ethan said with a small smile. "I just offered you the tools to save yourselves. Everything else you'll do on your own. I'm just here to support you along the way." That night, Hannah lay in the comfortable bed with Ella sleeping peacefully beside her, and she thought about the park bench where they'd been just 24 hours ago, about the cold rain and the hunger and the desperation, about the moment when Ethan had approached and offered a kindness she hadn't expected and barely dared to believe. She'd whispered, "We have nowhere to go," like a confession of failure, like an admission of defeat, like the end of hope. And he'd replied, "You do now, like a promise, like a beginning, like the start of something that might actually be okay." Hannah fell asleep that night with tears on her cheeks, but they were good tears, grateful tears, hopeful tears, the kind that came from finally believing that maybe, just maybe, they were going to be all right. The doctor's appointment the next morning went better than Hannah expected. Dr. Morrison was indeed excellent with children, making Ella laugh while conducting a thorough examination. After checking her vitals, listening to her heart and lungs, and asking questions about her medical history, the doctor gave Hannah the news she'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. "Ella is underweight for her age and showing signs of malnutrition," Dr. Morrison said gently, "but nothing that can't be corrected with proper nutrition and care." Her development seems normal otherwise. No signs of lasting damage. You got her help just in time, Miss Reed. Hannah felt tears of relief slide down her cheeks. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Morrison prescribed vitamins and gave Hannah a nutrition plan to help Ella gain weight healthily. She also gave Hannah information about a sliding-scale mental health clinic that specialized in trauma counseling for both children and adults. Living on the streets, even briefly, can have lasting psychological impacts, the doctor said kindly, especially for young children and for mothers who've been under that kind of stress. Please don't hesitate to seek support. There's no shame in needing help processing what you've been through. Ethan was waiting in his car when they emerged from the clinic. He'd insisted on driving them himself, rearranging his morning schedule to be there. Hannah found herself appreciating his presence more than she wanted to admit. It felt good to have support, to not face everything alone. How did it go? He asked as they climbed into the car. Good, Hannah said, buckling Ella into the back seat. Really good. She's going to be okay. Of course she is, Ethan said warmly. She's tough, like her mother. Over lunch at a family-friendly restaurant, Ethan asked Hannah about her work experience and what kind of job she'd be interested in pursuing. Hannah found herself opening up about her retail management background, about how much she'd enjoyed it before everything fell apart. I liked the structure of it, she explained. The organization, the problem-solving, helping customers find what they needed. I was good at inventory management and staff scheduling. My old boss said I had a talent for visual merchandising, making displays that drew people in. That's valuable experience, Ethan said. I have a friend who owns a chain of boutiques throughout the city, high-end women's clothing. She's been looking for an assistant manager for her flagship store. Would you be interested in something like that? Hannah's heart raced. That sounds amazing. But Ethan, I don't have references anymore. My old company went under, and I have no way to contact my previous supervisor. And I've been homeless. No employer wants to hire someone who's been on the streets. Let me worry about that, Ethan said. Your work history speaks for itself. And as for the gap in employment, we'll explain it honestly. You were dealing with a family emergency and housing instability. Any decent employer will understand. Plus, you'll have a reference from me. But you've only known me a few days, Hannah protested. I've known you long enough to see your character, Ethan said firmly. You're hard-working, determined, protective of your daughter, and honest. Those qualities matter more than any previous job reference. And Hannah, I'm not going to lie for you or exaggerate. I'm just going to tell the truth, that you're staying with me temporarily while getting back on your feet, that you're responsible and trustworthy, and that I have no hesitation recommending you. That afternoon, while Ella napped, Ethan made a phone call. Hannah listened from the library where she was reading, hearing only his side of the conversation. Victoria? It's Ethan. I'm good, thanks. Listen, I'm calling in that favor you owe me. Remember when I helped finance your expansion last year? Great. I have someone I'd like you to meet. Her name is Hannah Reed. She has retail management experience, and I think she'd be perfect for your assistant manager position. Tomorrow at 2? Perfect. I'll bring her by. Thanks, Victoria. You won't regret this. He found Hannah in the library after the call ended. You have an interview tomorrow at 2. Victoria's excited to meet you. Just like that? Hannah asked, overwhelmed. Just like that, Ethan confirmed. Hannah, this is what having resources means. It's not about buying your way into positions or asking people to hire unqualified candidates. It's about opening doors that might otherwise stay closed. What you do with the opportunity is up to you, but I can at least make sure you get the chance. The next day, Hannah borrowed one of the outfits from Ethan's sister's closet, a professional pantsuit that made her feel more confident than she had in months. Ethan drove her to the boutique, a beautiful store in an upscale shopping district. He waited in the car with Ella while Hannah went inside for the interview. Victoria Chen was an elegant woman in her 40s who greeted Hannah with a warm handshake. Any friend of Ethan's is worth my time, she said. He speaks highly of you. The interview lasted an hour. Victoria asked about Hannah's previous experience, her management style, her approach to customer service. Hannah answered honestly, drawing on her years of experience while being upfront about her recent challenges. I lost my job through no fault of my own when my company downsized, Hannah explained. Then I lost my housing. I've spent the past 2 months in survival mode, focused entirely on keeping my daughter safe. But I'm ready to work again. I'm ready to rebuild. And I promise you, if you give me this chance, I'll prove myself every single day. Victoria studied her for a moment. Ethan mentioned you have a 5-year-old daughter. What are your childcare arrangements? Hannah's heart sank. This was the question she'd been dreading. I'm working on that, but I'll figure it out. I won't let it affect my work. I promise. What if I told you we have on-site childcare? Victoria said. One of our other managers has young children too, so we partnered with a daycare center in the building. It's subsidized for employees. Would that help? Hannah felt tears threaten again. That would help more than you know. Good, Victoria said, standing and extending her hand. Welcome to the team, Hannah. You start Monday. Training for the first 2 weeks. Then we'll evaluate and see about moving you into the assistant manager role officially. Hannah shook her hand, barely able to believe what was happening. Thank you. Thank you so much. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Victoria said warmly. Ethan has excellent judgment about people. If he believes in you, that's good enough for me. Back in the car, Hannah told Ethan about the job offer, about the on-site childcare, about how Victoria had been so understanding. She was crying again, but these were tears of gratitude and disbelief that things were actually working out. I told you, Ethan said gently. You just needed a chance. The rest is all you, Hannah. Your skills, your experience, your determination. I just opened the door. You're the one walking through it. That evening, they celebrated with a special dinner. Margaret had prepared Ella's favorite foods, and they ate together in the formal dining room, Ella chattering excitedly about the daycare she'd be attending and the new friends she'd make. After Ella was in bed, Hannah and Ethan sat on the terrace overlooking the gardens, the evening air, cool but comfortable. Hannah wrapped her hands around a cup of tea, thinking about how much her life had changed in just a few days. I don't know how to thank you, she said quietly. You've given us so much. A home, food, safety, now a job. I feel like I'm in debt to you that I'll never be able to repay. You don't owe me anything, Ethan said for what felt like the 100th time. Hannah, can I tell you something? Of course. Since my mother died, I've been alone. Not literally, obviously. I have employees, business associates, people who call themselves friends, but truly alone in the ways that matter. I threw myself into building my company, into accumulating wealth and success. I told myself it was what my mother would have wanted, that I was honoring her memory by becoming successful. But the truth is, I was just filling time, going through motions, existing but not really living. He turned to look at Hannah directly. You and Ella have changed that. In just a few days, you've reminded me what it feels like to have purpose beyond business deals and profit margins. You've given me a reason to come home that isn't just another empty house. You've reminded me what family feels like, even if it's unconventional. Hannah felt her breath catch. Ethan, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted you to know that this isn't charity. This isn't me being noble or altruistic. This is me being selfish, wanting to keep people around who make me feel less alone. So maybe we're helping each other. Hannah set down her tea and reached over to take Ethan's hand. You're not alone anymore. Neither are we. Whatever this is, whatever we're building here, I'm grateful for it. You've shown Ella and me more kindness in a few days than we've experienced in years. That matters. You matter. They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Hannah thought about the park bench, where they'd been less than a week ago, about the cold rain and the hunger and the desperation, about the moment when Ethan had approached and offered help she barely dared to believe. She'd whispered, "We have nowhere to go," like a confession of failure, and he'd replied, "You do now," like a promise he was already keeping. If you've ever experienced unexpected kindness that changed your life, share your story in the comments below, because sometimes the people who save us are the ones we least expect. The following Monday, Hannah started her new job. She was nervous, hands shaking as Ethan dropped her and Ella off at the boutique. But Victoria was patient and welcoming, introducing Hannah to the other staff members and showing her around the store. The daycare was on the third floor of the building, bright and cheerful with toys and books and teachers who seemed genuinely caring. Ella clung to Hannah at first, scared to be left with strangers, but one of the teachers, a young woman named Maria, knelt down to Ella's level and started talking about the dollhouse in the corner, and gradually Ella's grip loosened. "She'll be fine," Maria assured Hannah. "First days are always hard, but most kids adjust quickly. We'll call you if there are any issues." Hannah's first day was overwhelming in the best way. There was so much to learn about inventory systems, point-of-sale software, customer preferences, staff schedules. But she soaked it up like a sponge, grateful for the challenge, grateful to be using her brain again for something besides survival strategies. Victoria checked on her several times throughout the day. "How are you holding up?" "Great," Hannah said honestly. "This is exactly what I needed. Thank you again for this opportunity." "Thank Ethan," Victoria said with a knowing smile. "He's been trying to get me to expand my business for years. This might be his way of making sure I have excellent staff to support that growth." That evening, Ethan asked about Hannah's first day over dinner. She told him everything, her enthusiasm evident as she described the beautiful clothes, the interesting customers, the supportive team. "Ella loved the daycare," Hannah added. "She's already made friends. She was telling me about a girl named Sophie who has the same teddy bear she does." "That's wonderful," Ethan said, watching Hannah with an expression she couldn't quite read. Warmth, certainly, but also something deeper, something that made her heart beat a little faster. Over the following weeks, Hannah settled into her new life. She worked hard at the boutique, impressing Victoria with her organizational skills and customer service instincts. Within 3 weeks, she was promoted to assistant manager officially, with a pay raise that made her cry when she saw her first paycheck. She and Ella continued living at Ethan's estate, but Hannah insisted on paying rent now that she had income. Ethan refused at first, but Hannah was adamant. "I need to contribute," she said firmly. "I need to feel like I'm earning my place here, not just accepting charity indefinitely. Please, Ethan, let me pay something." They compromised on an amount that was well below market rate, but made Hannah feel like she was contributing. She also started helping Margaret with household tasks, not as staff, but as a member of the household doing her share. She cooked dinner a few nights a week, helped with grocery shopping, kept their rooms tidy. "You don't have to do this," Ethan protested one evening when he found her cleaning the kitchen after dinner. "I want to," Hannah said. "You've given us so much. This is how I show appreciation." The relationship between Hannah and Ethan deepened naturally over those weeks. They talked every evening after Ella went to bed, sharing stories from their days, discussing everything from politics to favorite movies to childhood memories. Hannah found herself looking forward to those conversations, to the way Ethan really listened when she spoke, to the way he made her laugh with dry humor that caught her off guard. Ella adoré Ethan. She'd started calling him Uncle Ethan without being prompted, running to greet him when he came home from work, showing him her drawings from daycare, asking him to read her bedtime stories. And Ethan seemed to delight in the attention, making time for Ella despite his busy schedule, treating her like she mattered, like she was special. One Saturday, 2 months after moving in, Ethan suggested they visit a local fall festival. It was a beautiful autumn day, crisp and clear, perfect for an outing. They walked through rows of craft booths and food vendors, Ella running ahead to look at everything, Ethan and Hannah following at a more leisurely pace. "This is nice," Hannah said. "Thank you for suggesting it." "Thank you for coming," Ethan replied. "I haven't done anything like this in years. I forgot how much fun simple things can be." They bought Ella a caramel apple and let her go on a few rides. Hannah watched her daughter laugh and wave from the carousel, remembering all the festivals and fairs they'd missed over the past year because they couldn't afford admission. "Thank you," she said to Ethan, not for the first time, for giving her back her childhood, for making her feel safe and loved and normal again. "She deserves all of that," Ethan said. "So do you." They were standing close together, watching Ella ride the carousel, and Hannah was acutely aware of Ethan's presence beside her. The warmth of him, the solid reliability, the way he made her feel protected without making her feel weak. Over the past 2 months, her feelings for him had evolved from gratitude to something deeper, something she wasn't sure she was ready to name or acknowledge. That evening, after Ella was asleep, Hannah and Ethan sat in their usual spots on the terrace. The weather was getting colder, and they'd started using the outdoor heaters to make it comfortable. Hannah wrapped herself in a blanket, cradling her tea, thinking about the day. "Can I ask you something personal?" Ethan said. "After 2 months, I think we're past avoiding personal questions," Hannah said with a small smile. "What happened with your husband, Ella's father? You've mentioned he abandoned you, but you haven't really explained what happened." Hannah was quiet for a long moment, deciding how much to share. Finally, she took a breath and began. "His name is Marcus. We met when I was 22, married a year later. At first, he seemed perfect, charming, attentive, romantic. But after we married, things changed. He became controlling, monitoring where I went, who I talked to, what I wore. Then, the anger started. Yelling at first, then shoving, then hitting." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. "I stayed because I was ashamed," Hannah continued, "because he convinced me it was my fault, that I provoked him, that I deserved it, and because I didn't know how to leave. Then I got pregnant with Ella, and I thought maybe having a baby would change things. It didn't. He resented her from the moment she was born, said she was too expensive, too demanding. The abuse got worse." Hannah felt tears slide down her cheeks, but she kept talking. "When Ella was 2, Marcus hit me in front of her. That was my line. I'd tolerated him hurting me, but I couldn't let him traumatize my daughter. So I left. Took Ella while Marcus was at work, went to a women's shelter, filed for divorce. He disappeared after that, never paid child support, never tried to see Ella, just vanished." "I'm so sorry you went through that," Ethan said, his voice rough with emotion. "No one deserves that kind of treatment." "The thing is," Hannah said, wiping at her tears, "I spent 3 years rebuilding after I left him. Got the job at the retail store, got the apartment, started feeling safe again. Then I lost everything in a few months, and I was right back to having nothing. It felt like punishment, like the universe was saying I didn't deserve stability or safety." "The universe isn't punishing you," Ethan said firmly. "You just had terrible luck compounded by a system that doesn't adequately support people facing hardship. None of that was your fault, Hannah. None of it." He moved closer, taking her hand. "And for what it's worth, I think you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You survived abuse, left when it was dangerous to leave, rebuilt from nothing, protected your daughter through everything. Then you hit rock bottom and still managed to keep going, keep fighting, keep hoping. That's not weakness or failure. That's incredible strength." Hannah looked at their joined hands, then up at Ethan's face. "You make me feel brave, like I can do anything as long as I have support." "You can," Ethan said softly. "You already have. I'm just here to remind you of that when you forget." They were very close now, faces inches apart. Hannah could feel her heart racing, could see something in Ethan's eyes that mirrored what she was feeling. Want, hope, the terrifying possibility of something new. "Hannah," Ethan whispered, "I need to tell you something. And please know there's no pressure, no expectations. You can say no and nothing changes between us. But I can't keep it to myself anymore." "Tell me," Hannah breathed. "I'm falling in love with you," Ethan said simply. "Maybe I've been falling since that first night in the park. Maybe it happened gradually over these past 2 months. But I'm falling, and I needed you to know. You're not just someone I'm helping. You're someone I care about deeply, someone I want in my life permanently, not just as a temporary guest." Hannah felt tears streaming down her face again. "Ethan, I'm scared. I haven't let myself have feelings for anyone since Marcus. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I can trust myself to choose well." "I'm not Marcus," Ethan said gently. "I would never hurt you or Ella. I would never control you or make you feel small. I'm just a man who's found something precious and wants to protect it, cherish it, be worthy of it." "I know you're not Marcus," Hannah said. "And that's what scares me, because you're wonderful, Ethan. You're kind and patient and generous. And I'm starting to have feelings for you that terrify me, because what if I mess this up? What if my damage is too much? What if I ruin this beautiful thing we have? You won't, Ethan said with certainty. Hannah, we'll take this as slowly as you need. There's no rush, no timeline. I'm just asking if you think, maybe someday, you could see me as more than just the man who helped you. If you could see me as someone you might want to build a life with. Hannah thought about the past 2 months, about the way Ethan made her laugh, about how safe she felt around him, about the way he treated Ella with such genuine affection, about the conversations that lasted for hours, about the comfortable silences, about the way her heart sped up when he walked into a room. I already see you that way, she admitted. I've been seeing you that way for weeks but was too afraid to acknowledge it. Because you're everything, Ethan. Everything I needed when I thought I didn't deserve anything. And yes, I'm terrified. But I also think I could be falling for you too. Ethan smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Yeah? Yeah, Hannah confirmed. But slowly, really slowly, with lots of communication and honesty and patience as I figure out how to trust again. Slowly is perfect, Ethan said. I've waited 36 years to feel this way about someone. I can wait as long as you need. He leaned forward slowly, giving Hannah plenty of time to pull away. But she didn't want to. She let him cup her face gently, let his lips meet hers in a kiss that was soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. I should probably tell you something, Hannah said. Ella has been asking when you're going to be her daddy. Apparently, she's decided you're perfect for the job. Ethan laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Has she now? And what did you tell her? That these things take time, that relationships are complicated, that we have to be sure. Hannah paused. But between you and me, I'm already pretty sure. Good, Ethan said, pulling her close. Because I'm absolutely sure, you and Ella, you're my family now. However long it takes to make that official, you're already mine and I'm already yours. They sat together on the terrace, wrapped in blankets against the autumn chill, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Hannah thought about the journey that had brought her here, the pain and loss and desperate fear, the cold park bench and the rain, and the moment she'd whispered, "We have nowhere to go." She'd thought those words meant the end, the final defeat, the last moment before everything fell apart completely. But they'd been the beginning, the moment that brought Ethan into her life, the moment everything started to change. 3 months ago, Hannah Reed had been a homeless mother with nothing but a thin blanket and a desperate love for her daughter. Now she was falling in love with a man who saw her worth, who treated her with respect, who'd given her back not just a home but hope for a future she'd stopped believing in. And as she sat there in Ethan's arms, warm and safe and loved, Hannah finally let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, happy endings were possible after all. 6 months after that rainy night in the park, Hannah's life had become something she barely recognized. Not because it felt foreign or uncomfortable, but because it felt so impossibly right. She woke up each morning in the room that had stopped feeling like a guest suite and started feeling like home. She went to work at a job she loved, managing staff and inventory at Victoria's flagship boutique, with a competence that surprised even herself. She came home to Ella's laughter and Ethan's warm smile and dinners, where they sat together like a real family because that's what they'd become. The relationship between Hannah and Ethan had deepened gradually over those months. They'd taken things slowly, just as Hannah needed. Gentle kisses goodnight that eventually became passionate embraces. Holding hands that became comfortable physical affection. Separate bedrooms that stayed separate because Hannah needed that boundary. Needed to know this wasn't about physical intimacy, but genuine emotional connection. Ethan never pushed, never complained, never made her feel like she owed him anything. He just loved her, patiently and completely, waiting for her to be ready for each new step in their relationship. Ella had flourished in the stability they'd built. She'd gained weight, her cheeks filled out and rosy. She'd started kindergarten at a good school near Ethan's estate, making friends and bringing home artwork that they displayed proudly on the refrigerator. The nightmares that had plagued her after their time on the streets had gradually decreased. She smiled more, laughed freely, acted like a normal 5-year-old instead of a child who'd learned too young that the world could be cruel. One evening in early spring, almost 7 months after their first meeting, Ethan asked Hannah to go for a walk in the gardens after Ella had gone to bed. The weather was warming, flowers beginning to bloom, the air filled with the scent of growth and renewal. They walked hand in hand through pathways lined with early tulips and daffodils, comfortable in the silence that had become as meaningful as their conversations. Finally, Ethan stopped at a bench near the fountain, gesturing for Hannah to sit. "I need to talk to you about something," he said, and Hannah felt her heart skip nervously. Those words, in her experience, usually preceded bad news. "Okay," she said carefully, bracing herself. Ethan took both her hands, looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Hannah, these past 7 months have been the happiest of my life. You and Ella have transformed my house into a home. You've shown me what it means to be part of a family, to have people to care for and who care about me in return. I can't imagine my life without you both in it anymore." "Ethan, what are you saying?" Hannah asked, her voice trembling. "I'm saying that I want to make this permanent. I want you to stay, not as a temporary guest or someone I'm helping, but as my partner, my family. I want to adopt Ella officially, if you'll let me. I want to be her father in every way that matters, legally and emotionally." Hannah felt tears streaming down her face. "You want to adopt Ella?" "I love her like she's already mine," Ethan said simply. "She calls me Uncle Ethan, but I want to be Dad. I want her to have the security of knowing that I'm committed to her forever, not just as long as you and I are together. She deserves that stability, that certainty. If you're comfortable with it, I'd like to start the adoption process." Hannah couldn't speak. The magnitude of what he was offering, the depth of his commitment, it was almost too much to process. Ethan loved her daughter enough to want to legally claim her as his own, to give her his name, his protection, his resources, not just as charity but as family. "But there's something else," Ethan continued, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. "Hannah Reed, I know this might seem fast. I know we've only known each other for 7 months, but I also know that I love you with everything I am. I know that you're the person I want to wake up next to every morning for the rest of my life. I know that I want to build a future with you and Ella, to create the family none of us had growing up." He opened the box, revealing a beautiful diamond ring that caught the moonlight and threw sparkles across the fountain water. "Will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband and Ella's father? Will you build this life with me?" Hannah was sobbing now, tears of joy and disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. "Yes," she managed through the tears. "Yes, Ethan, I'll marry you. And yes, you can adopt Ella. She already loves you. She's been asking when you're going to be her real daddy. I kept telling her these things take time, but she was right all along. You've been her father in every way that matters since that first night." Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. They kissed under the stars, beside the fountain, in the gardens where Hannah had watched Ella play so many times over the past months. This place that had become home, this man who had become family, this life that had seemed impossible 7 months ago. "I love you," Hannah whispered against his lips. "I love you so much it terrifies me. But it's also the best thing I've ever felt. You saved us, Ethan. You gave us back our lives." "You saved me too," Ethan said softly. "I was existing but not living, building an empire but missing the point of what success actually means. You and Ella reminded me that the only wealth that matters is the people you love and who love you back. That's the real treasure." They sat on the bench for a long time, Hannah's head on Ethan's shoulder, planning their future. They'd have a small wedding, just close friends and family. They'd start the adoption process immediately so Ella would have legal security. They'd maybe think about having more children, giving Ella the siblings she'd started asking about. They'd continue working, building their careers while supporting each other. They'd travel as a family, showing Ella the world. They'd create the life they'd both been denied as children, breaking the cycle of abandonment and instability. "Can we tell Ella in the morning?" Hannah asked. "I want to see her face when she finds out you're going to be her dad officially." "Absolutely," Ethan said, "though I have a feeling she's going to say, 'I told you so.' She's been very insistent that I'm already her dad, and we just need to make it official." Hannah laughed, thinking about her precocious daughter, who decided weeks ago that Ethan was perfect and they were keeping him. She's wiser than both of us combined. The next morning, they sat Ella down before school and explained that Ethan had asked Hannah to marry him and wanted to adopt Ella. Her daughter's reaction was exactly what Hannah expected: pure, unfiltered joy. "I knew it," Ella shouted, jumping up and down. "I told Sophie at daycare that Uncle Ethan was going to be my daddy. I told her. Can I call you Daddy now instead of Uncle Ethan?" "I would love that," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "Nothing would make me happier than being your daddy." Ella launched herself into Ethan's arms, hugging him tight. "Best daddy in the whole world," she declared. Then she turned to Hannah. "And you're going to be a princess bride, Mummy, with a big dress. Maybe a medium-sized dress," Hannah said with a laugh, catching Ethan's eye over their daughter's head. Their daughter, because Ella was already theirs in every way that mattered. The adoption process took 4 months. There were home visits, background checks, psychological evaluations, court appearances. Marcus had to be located and his parental rights terminated, which proved surprisingly easy when he realized signing the papers meant he'd never have to pay child support. Through it all, Ethan remained patient and determined, making it clear to every social worker and judge that this wasn't charity or obligation, but genuine love. The day the adoption was finalized, they had a small celebration at home. Ella officially became Ella Reed Cole, her new birth certificate listing Ethan as her father. She wore a special dress for the occasion and carried around her adoption certificate like it was made of gold, showing it to everyone who visited. "I have a daddy now," she told Margaret, who cried and hugged her. "A real daddy who chose me on purpose." That phrase hit Hannah hard. A daddy who chose her on purpose. Not a father who abandoned her or resented her existence, but a dad who actively wanted her, who'd gone through months of legal processes to claim her officially. That was what every child deserved and what Ella finally had. The wedding took place 2 months after the adoption was finalized, on a beautiful summer day in the estate gardens where Ethan had proposed. Hannah wore a simple ivory dress that Ella declared made her look like a princess. Ella served as flower girl, taking her job very seriously as she scattered rose petals down the aisle. Victoria was there, along with several of Hannah's co-workers who'd become genuine friends. Margaret cried through the entire ceremony. A few of Ethan's business associates attended, along with his sister and her family. It was small and intimate and absolutely perfect. If you've ever found love when you thought you'd lost everything, if someone has ever chosen you when you felt unchosen by the world, share your story in the comments below, because these moments matter. These connections change lives. When Hannah walked down the aisle toward Ethan, she thought about the journey that had brought her here, the pain and fear and desperate nights, the moment on a park bench when she'd whispered, "We have nowhere to go," and believed it meant the end of everything. The impossible kindness of a stranger who'd replied, "You do now," and meant it with his whole heart. Ethan's eyes were wet with tears as he watched her approach. When she reached him and took his hands, he whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You're the best thing that ever happened to me," Hannah whispered back. Their vows were simple but heartfelt, promises to love and support each other, to be partners in every sense of the word, to build a family based on choice and commitment rather than obligation or tradition. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Ethan pulled Hannah into a kiss that made Ella giggle, and the small crowd applaud. At the reception, Ethan gave a speech that made everyone cry. 7 months ago, I was a successful businessman with everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. I was lonely in a way that no amount of wealth could fix. Then I saw a woman and a little girl huddled on a park bench in the rain, and something inside me said, "Stop, help them. This matters." I had no idea that stopping would change my life completely, that helping them would actually be them helping me, that I'd find my family in the most unexpected place at the most unexpected time. He looked at Hannah and Ella, love shining in his eyes. "People have told me I saved you, but the truth is, you saved me. You gave me purpose and meaning, and a reason to come home that isn't just another empty house. You gave me love I didn't even know I was missing. So thank you, Hannah and Ella, for letting me be part of your lives, for choosing me, for building this beautiful family with me." Hannah's speech was shorter but equally emotional. There's a moment in every life when you have to decide whether to give up or keep fighting, whether to accept that things will never get better or hold on to hope despite all evidence to the contrary. My moment came on a park bench in the rain when I had nothing left but my daughter and a thin blanket. I was ready to give up. Then Ethan stopped. He saw us when we'd been invisible for so long. He offered help when everyone else had turned away. And he's been offering that help, that love, that support every day since. Marrying Ethan isn't just about romance or love, though there's plenty of both. It's about partnership and family, and the promise that we'll never be alone again, that we've chosen each other permanently and completely. They danced their first dance as husband and wife, while Ella watched with a huge smile, clapping along to the music. Later, Ethan danced with Ella, twirling her around while she giggled. Hannah watched them together and felt her heart so full it hurt. This was her family. This was her home. This was the life she'd stopped believing was possible. That night, after the guests had left and Ella had been tucked into bed exhausted from excitement, Hannah and Ethan finally moved into the master bedroom together. Hannah had been ready for this step for a while, but they'd waited until after the wedding, wanting to make it special and meaningful rather than rushed. "Are you happy?" Ethan asked, as they stood on the balcony off the master suite, looking out at the gardens where they'd just gotten married. "Happier than I knew was possible," Hannah said honestly. 7 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd failed at everything that mattered. I couldn't provide for my daughter. I couldn't keep us safe. I couldn't see any way forward that didn't end in losing Ella to the system or worse. She turned to face Ethan, taking his hands. "Then you stopped. You saw us. You cared. And you've been caring every single day since. You gave us shelter and food and safety. You gave me a job and confidence and a future I could work toward. You gave Ella a father who actually wants her. You gave us both a family. How do I ever thank you enough for that?" "You don't have to thank me," Ethan said, pulling her close. "Hannah, you keep acting like I did you this huge favor, but the favor was mutual. You gave me purpose and meaning and love. You gave me a reason to be successful beyond just accumulating wealth. You gave me a family when I'd given up on ever having one. We saved each other. That's how real love works." They stood together in the moonlight, newly married, looking at the life they'd built from the ashes of their separate tragedies. Two people who'd lost everything and found each other at exactly the right moment. The years that followed were full of the beautiful chaos that comes with building a life together. Hannah continued working at the boutique, eventually becoming store manager when Victoria opened a second location and promoted her. She loved the work, loved the challenge, loved the independence of having her own career and income. Ethan remained successful in business, but he made more time for family. He adjusted his schedule to never miss Ella's school events or important family dinners. He started a foundation supporting homeless families, using his own experience to shape programs that actually helped, rather than just applying band-aids to systemic problems. Ella thrived in the stability they'd created. She excelled in school, made friends easily, took dance classes and art lessons and swim team. She grew into a confident, kind child who remembered where she'd come from but wasn't defined by it. On her 7th birthday, she asked if they could volunteer at a homeless shelter, wanting to help other kids who didn't have a home like she once didn't. They made it a family tradition, spending one Saturday a month serving meals and donating supplies. 2 years after the wedding, Hannah and Ethan had another daughter, Grace. Ella was thrilled to be a big sister, taking her responsibility seriously and helping care for the baby with gentle hands and fierce protectiveness. Grace's arrival completed their family in ways none of them had expected. She represented the future they'd built together, the life that came from love rather than obligation or accident. On the 3-year anniversary of the night they'd met, Ethan insisted on taking Hannah back to the park where he'd first seen her and Ella. The bench where they'd been sitting had been replaced as part of park renovations, but the spot remained the same. "I come here sometimes," Ethan admitted as they stood looking at the bench, "when I need to remember what's important. When business stress makes me forget why I work as hard as I do. I come here and remember that night. Remember seeing you and Ella and knowing I had to stop, had to help, had to do something." "I'm glad you stopped," Hannah said softly. I'm glad you saw us. I'm glad you cared enough to offer help to complete strangers." "You were never strangers," Ethan said. "From the moment I saw you protecting Ella with that thin blanket, trying so hard to keep her warm and safe, I knew you were important. I didn't know why or how, but I knew." They donated a plaque for the bench, installed the previous week. It read, "In honor of second chances and the kindness of strangers, may everyone who sits here find the help they need." Below that was information about local homeless services, domestic violence resources, and emergency assistance programs. "Maybe someone else will sit here someday," Hannah said, touching the plaque gently. "Someone desperate and scared and out of options. And maybe they'll see this and know there's help available, that they're not alone." "That's the hope," Ethan agreed, "that our story can help others, that our experience can make the system a little more compassionate and efficient for people coming after us." 5 years after their meeting, they threw a big party to celebrate. Not an anniversary exactly, but a recognition of how far they'd come. Friends and family gathered at the estate. Ella, now 10 years old, gave a speech she'd written herself about what having a real family meant to her. Grace, 3 years old, mostly stole cookies and charmed everyone. Victoria stood up to share her perspective. When Ethan called me 5 years ago asking me to interview Hannah, I agreed because he's a friend and I owed him a favor. I expected to do a courtesy interview and let her down gently. But Hannah walked in and proved herself within the first 10 minutes. She was knowledgeable, passionate, hard-working, everything I look for in an employee. The fact that she'd been homeless just weeks before didn't matter. Her skills and character spoke for themselves. She looked at Hannah with genuine warmth. "You've been one of the best hires I've ever made. You've helped my business grow and succeed beyond what I imagined. And more than that, you've become a dear friend. Your journey from that park bench to store manager and successful businesswoman is an inspiration to everyone who knows your story." Margaret spoke next, tears streaming down her face as usual. "I've worked for Mr. Ethan for 12 years. I've seen him build an empire and accumulate wealth most people can't imagine. But I've never seen him truly happy until Hannah and Ella came into his life. They brought joy and laughter and love into this house. They transformed it from a showplace into a home. I'm grateful every day that they're here, that we're all family now." When it was Hannah's turn to speak, she stood with Ethan's arm around her waist, and Ella and Grace flanking them. Her family, her impossibly beautiful family. 5 years ago tonight, I sat on a park bench in the rain with my 5-year-old daughter, and I thought my life was over. I'd lost everything. My job, my apartment, my dignity, my hope. I had nothing left except Ella and a desperate determination to keep her safe. I was invisible to the world, just another homeless woman with a child that people walked past without seeing. She paused, remembering that night vividly. The cold, the fear, the hunger, the sense of complete defeat. Then a man in an expensive car stopped. He saw us when everyone else looked away. He offered help when I'd been rejected so many times I'd stopped asking. He said 6 words that changed everything. "You do now have somewhere to go." And he meant it. Not just for that night, but for every night since. Hannah looked at Ethan, love shining in her eyes. Ethan gave us shelter and food and safety, but he gave us so much more than that. He gave us dignity and hope and a future worth believing in. He gave Ella a father who chose her on purpose and loves her unconditionally. He gave me a partner who sees me as an equal despite our different circumstances. He gave us both a family and a home. She addressed the gathered crowd. "I know our story seems like a fairy tale. Homeless woman meets billionaire, gets rescued, lives happily ever after. But that's not what actually happened. What actually happened is that 2 people met at a moment when both of them needed something the other could provide. Ethan needed purpose and meaning and family. I needed support and opportunity and belief that things could be better. We helped each other. We chose each other. We built this life together." Turning back to Ethan, she concluded, "Thank you for stopping that night. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being the father Ella deserved and the partner I never thought I'd find. Thank you for proving that good people still exist, that kindness matters, that one person really can change another person's life. I love you more than words can express." Ethan kissed her gently, then addressed the crowd himself. 5 years ago, I thought success meant business achievements and financial wealth. I thought I'd made it because I had money and power and influence. But I was wrong. Success isn't about what you accumulate. It's about who you love and who loves you back. It's about the family you build and the life you create. It's about using whatever resources you have to make the world a little bit better for at least one person. He looked at Hannah and then at Ella and Grace. My family taught me that. They taught me that the only wealth that truly matters is love. That the only success worth celebrating is making the people around you happy and safe and valued. I'm a better man because of them. A happier man. A more complete man. To the crowd, he said, if you take anything from our story, let it be this. See people. Really see them. The homeless person on the corner, the struggling single parent, the person working minimum wage to survive. They're not invisible. They're humans with dreams and potential and worth. One act of kindness, one moment of truly seeing someone can change everything. For them and for you. The party continued into the night, full of laughter and love and gratitude for the journey they'd all been on together. As the evening wound down and guests began leaving, Hannah stood in the garden watching Ella and Grace chase fireflies, their laughter carrying on the warm summer air. Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Happy? He asked, a question he still asked regularly, still needing to make sure she was okay. So happy, Hannah confirmed, leaning back against him. Sometimes I think about that night in the park and I can't believe this is the same life, that I'm the same person. Everything changed in a moment. You were always this person, Ethan said. Strong, capable, worthy of good things. You just needed someone to see it and give you a chance to show it. They stood together watching their daughters play, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. The pain and loss and desperate fear, the unexpected kindness of a stranger, the slow building of trust and love and family, the life they'd created together from nothing. Hannah thought about all the nights she'd spent on that park bench, feeling invisible and forgotten and worthless. She thought about the moment Ethan had approached, how she'd almost refused his help out of fear and pride. She thought about how easily she could have made a different choice, could have sent him away, could have stayed on that bench until child services took Ella and she lost everything that mattered. But she'd chosen to trust, chosen to accept help, chosen to believe that maybe, possibly, this stranger's kindness was genuine, and that choice had changed everything. I love you, she said to Ethan, turning in his arms to face him. Not because you rescued us, though that matters, but because of who you are. Kind, generous, patient, loving. The best man I've ever known, and the best father our girls could have asked for. I love you too, Ethan said, kissing her softly. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Hannah Reed Cole. You and Ella and Grace. You're my family, my home, my whole world. As they stood there in the garden, their daughters playing nearby, the estate lit up with warm lights, Hannah felt a peace so profound it brought tears to her eyes. She'd survived homelessness, abuse, loss, and desperation. She'd rebuilt from nothing. She'd learned to trust again, to love again, to believe in happy endings. And here, in this garden, with this man and these children, and this life they'd built together, she'd found something she'd stopped believing existed. Home. Not just a place, though the estate was beautiful, but home in the truest sense. Safety, love, belonging, acceptance. Family chosen not by blood but by commitment and choice. 5 years ago, she'd whispered, we have nowhere to go into a rainy night, believing it meant the end of everything. Ethan had replied, you do now, and meant it as a promise he'd keep for the rest of their lives. And here they were, 5 years later, with nowhere to go, because they were already home. The story of Hannah and Ethan isn't a fairy tale. It's a reminder that sometimes, in our darkest moments, help arrives from unexpected places. That one person choosing to stop and see someone truly can change everything. That we're all just one bad day away from needing help and one good person away from getting it. Their story is a call to action, to see the homeless mother on the corner and remember she's someone's daughter, possibly someone's mother, definitely someone worthy of compassion. To offer help when you can, knowing that kindness ripples outward in ways we can't predict or measure. To remember that success isn't about what you accumulate, but what you give and who you love. Hannah whispered, "We have nowhere to go," in desperation. Ethan replied, "You do now," with compassion, and together they built something beautiful from broken pieces and desperate moments. That's the real lesson. That's what matters. Not the money or the mansion or the perfect ending, but the choice to see someone, to help someone, to be someone's reason to hope when hope seems impossible. May we all be both Hannah and Ethan in different moments of our lives. May we accept help when we need it and offer help when we can. May we see people who feel invisible and remind them they matter. May we build families from choice and commitment rather than just circumstance. And may we remember that sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments, if we're brave enough to accept help and wise enough to offer it. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear that better days are possible. Drop a comment about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness or a time you helped someone in need. Because these stories matter. These connections change lives. And your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Thank you for joining Hannah, Ethan, Ella, and Grace on their journey. May your own journey be filled with unexpected kindness, genuine love, and the courage to accept help when you need it and offer it when you can.